I found out my son wasn't mine when he was 9 years old. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't confront my wife. I smiled at her across the dinner table that night, asked her how her day was, and quietly began building the most carefully planned exit of my life. It would take 8 years. But I am a patient man. My name is Ryan Calloway. I'm 44 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I work in commercial real estate, property acquisitions, lease negotiations, the kind of work that requires you to read people accurately and think several moves ahead. I'm good at it. I've always been good at it. I want to tell you about the 8 years that changed my life. Not because I need sympathy, I'm well past that. But because I think some of you out there might be living inside a version of this story right now, and maybe hearing how mine ended will give you something to hold on to. Melissa and I met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's birthday party in Houston. She was funny, sharp, the kind of woman who could hold her own in any conversation. We dated for 3 years before getting engaged. During that time, we did what responsible people do. We both worked hard, spent carefully, and saved aggressively. By the time we got married, we had combined savings of just over $74,000. Enough, in 2008, to put a solid down payment on a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood in North Austin. It wasn't a large house, but it was ours. We picked it out together, signed the papers together, painted the walls together. I remember the day we got the keys. Melissa laughed and made me carry her over the threshold like something out of an old movie. I thought, standing there in that empty living room that smelled like fresh paint and possibility, that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We were married in June. By October, Melissa was pregnant. Connor was born the following July. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, a full head of dark hair, and the loudest cry I'd ever heard in my life. I was in the delivery room. I held him within minutes of him entering the world. I looked down at that small, furious face and felt something shift inside me that I don't have adequate words for even now. I was a father. Whatever else I was or wasn't, I was this boy's father. I believed that completely and without question for 9 years. Connor grew up happy. He was a good kid, curious, a little stubborn, obsessed with building things, which I liked to think came from me. He wasn't the best student, but he worked hard when he cared about something, and he had a kindness to him that I admired. He played Little League for 4 seasons. I coached 2 of them. It was at one of those games. Connor was 9, playing shortstop, absolutely focused the way he got when he was determined to do something right, that my colleague, a man named Pete Davenport, said something I wasn't prepared for. We were standing at the chain-link fence watching the boys warm up. Pete had his son on the same team, and we'd become friendly over the season, the way parents do when they spend enough Saturday mornings in the same bleachers. He glanced at Connor, then at me, then back at Connor. "That's your boy, right?" he said. "Number 14? "Yeah," I said. Pete nodded slowly. He didn't say anything else right away. Just watched Connor field a ground ball, clean and quick. "Good player," Pete said finally. That was all. But something in the way he'd paused, that slight hesitation, lodged itself in the back of my mind like a splinter. I told myself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Over the next few months, I started noticing what I had apparently been too deep in love and daily life to notice before. Connor had Melissa's nose, Melissa's smile. But his eyes, a light greenish gray, almost unusual in their color, didn't match mine or Melissa's. His jaw was shaped differently. His build, even at 9, was lanky in a way that neither my family nor Melissa's ran toward. I looked at photographs of myself at 9. Then at photographs of Connor. I'm not a man who panics. But I remember sitting alone in my home office one night, the house quiet, Melissa asleep upstairs, and feeling the floor tilt beneath me. I said nothing to Melissa. I said nothing to anyone. I ordered a home DNA test online, paid for it on a separate card I'd opened quietly the month before, and had it sent to my office address. Getting Connor's sample was easier than I expected. I used a cheek swab while he was asleep, something I've since read is not uncommon in these situations. I sent both samples in and waited 13 days for results. The results were unambiguous. Probability of paternity, 0%. Ryan Calloway was not Connor's biological father. I remember reading that line on my laptop screen at 11:47 on a Tuesday night in September. I remember the specific quality of the silence in the room, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the distant sound of a car passing on the street outside. I did not cry. I did not throw anything. I did not go upstairs and wake Melissa. I sat in that chair for a long time. And then I did something that, looking back, defined everything that came after. I opened a new document on my computer, and I started writing. Not a letter, not a confrontation speech. A timeline. A list of assets. A list of questions I needed answered before I made a single move. Because here is the thing about discovering a betrayal of this magnitude. The first instinct, the emotional instinct, is to react immediately. To confront, to explode, to demand answers and make the pain visible. I understood that instinct completely. And I understood that following it would be the single worst thing I could do for my future. Connor was 9 years old. Innocent. Completely uninvolved in whatever his mother had done. He was also, regardless of biology, the child I had raised for 9 years. The boy I had coached and driven to school and helped with homework and sat beside in the emergency room when he broke his arm falling out of a tree at age 7. I was not going to blow up his life for my anger. But I was also not going to let Melissa walk away from what she had done without consequence. Not after 9 years of lies. Not after she had looked me in the eye every single day and let me believe I was Connor's father. I needed a plan. A real one. Patient, methodical, and airtight. Connor would turn 18 in 9 years. I could wait 9 years. I closed the laptop, went upstairs, and got into bed beside my wife. She stirred slightly when I pulled back the covers. "You're up late," she murmured. "Just finishing some work," I said. "Come to bed," she said softly, and reached back to find my hand in the dark. I let her take it. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, her hand warm in mine. And I began to plan. I want to be honest about something. Living a double life, even a righteous one, costs you more than you expect. Not financially. Not professionally. Those parts, I had under control from the beginning. What it costs you is something quieter and harder to name. It costs you the ability to be fully present in your own life. Every conversation with Melissa, every family dinner, every vacation photo, every Christmas morning, all of it happening on 2 levels simultaneously. The surface level, where I was Ryan Calloway, husband and father, laughing at the right moments and saying the right things. And the deeper level, where I was something else entirely. Watchful. Calculating. Waiting. I became very good at both. The first thing I did, even before I spoke to an attorney, was educate myself. Texas is a community property state. That means assets acquired during a marriage are generally considered jointly owned, regardless of who earned the money. On the surface, that sounds like it would hurt me. But Texas law also allows for something called disproportionate division in cases where one spouse is found to have engaged in fault, including adultery. A judge has discretion. And discretion, I learned, favors the prepared. I found my attorney 14 months after I got the DNA results. His name was Walter Briggs, a family law specialist in Austin with 30 years of experience and a reputation for being methodical and relentless. I did not walk into his office and tell him everything immediately. I made an initial consultation appointment, told him I was thinking about my options, and listened carefully to how he explained Texas divorce law. I liked him. More importantly, I trusted his judgment. 3 months later, I went back and told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, then he looked at me and said, "How long are you prepared to play the long game?" I told him 9 years, give or take. He didn't blink. "Then let's make sure those 9 years count," he said. From that point forward, Walter and I met 4 times a year. Quietly. Carefully. I paid him in cash for the first 2 years, then switched to a separate personal account Melissa had no knowledge of, opened under a legitimate LLC I established for a small real estate side project, which gave it a paper trail that was entirely explainable. During those 8 years, I did 4 things with great consistency. First, I documented everything. Walter had advised me early on to keep records of all financial transactions, all joint assets, all improvements made to the property. I built a private encrypted archive, updated monthly, stored on a server I controlled. By the time we were done, I had 8 years of meticulous documentation that showed, clearly and undeniably, the full picture of our marital estate. Second, I protected my income. I was careful never to make dramatic moves that would alter our lifestyle and arouse suspicion. But I structured my professional compensation in ways that were legal, transparent, and strategically timed. Certain bonuses. Certain investment vehicles. Walter reviewed everything. Third, I found out who Connor's biological father was. This took time. I wasn't in a rush. Melissa had, as far as I could tell, ended whatever she'd had before Connor was born. There was no ongoing affair that I could detect, and believe me, I looked carefully. What I eventually pieced together, through patience and a private investigator I hired in year 3, was that the man was a colleague of Melissa's from a job she'd left before Connor was born. He had since moved to Oregon, remarried, and had 2 other children. I filed that information away. Not for revenge against him, he likely didn't even know Connor existed. But because knowledge is leverage, and I was not going to enter a courtroom without knowing every variable. Fourth, and this is the part that still sits heaviest with me, I was a good father to Connor. I want to be very clear about this. Whatever my plan was, whatever I was quietly building behind the scenes, Connor was never part of the calculation. He was my son in every way that mattered. I had chosen that, and I kept choosing it every single day for 18 years. I attended every school event. I helped him through his first heartbreak at 16. I drove him to his college visits. I was present, fully and genuinely, because that boy deserved a father who showed up. The plan was never about Connor. It was about Melissa. Those are not the same thing. Melissa, for her part, seemed content. That was the word I kept coming back to, content. Not radiantly happy, not visibly guilty, just settled. Comfortable. She had built a life she seemed to find satisfying, and she moved through it with the ease of someone who had no idea the ground beneath her was anything other than solid. There were moments, I won't pretend otherwise, where I watched her laughing at something Connor said, or humming to herself in the kitchen on a Sunday morning, and felt the full weight of what had been taken from me. 9 years of believing I was building something real, something true. A family. A future. All of it constructed on a foundation she had poisoned before the concrete even dried. I did not let those moments derail me. I acknowledged them and I let them pass. That is the discipline that 8 years teaches you. Connor turned 18 on a Thursday in July. I remember that morning clearly. We had a family breakfast. Melissa made his favorite, blueberry pancakes with bacon, and Connor sat at the kitchen table looking simultaneously like the 9-year-old I'd coached at Little League and like someone entirely his own person, which he absolutely was. I gave him a card and a check. Inside the card I wrote, "I am proud of the man you are becoming. That will never change." I meant every word. 3 days later, I called Walter Briggs and told him we were ready to move. "Finally," Walter said, and I could hear the quiet satisfaction in his voice. Finally, I agreed. Walter had told me early on that the most dangerous phase of any long-term legal strategy is the execution phase. People plan for years, he said, and then they get impatient at the finish line. They tip their hand. They get emotional. They make mistakes they can't take back. I had waited 8 years. I was not going to make mistakes now. The first move was served on a Tuesday morning in August, 3 weeks after Connor's 18th birthday. Melissa was at work. She managed a small interior design studio she'd opened 6 years earlier, something I had supported financially and emotionally without hesitation, because maintaining normalcy was the entire strategy. A process server walked into that studio at 10:15 in the morning and handed her the divorce petition in front of 2 of her employees. I had specifically requested that timing. Not out of cruelty, though I will admit I did not lose sleep over it, but because Walter had advised that serving her in a professional setting made it significantly less likely she would react in a way that could later be used to characterize me negatively in court. People tend to hold themselves together in front of colleagues. She called me 4 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Her second call came 20 minutes after the first. Then a third. Then a text message that simply said, Ryan. Please. I was sitting in Walter's conference room when the messages came in. Walter glanced at my phone screen and said nothing. I turned it face down on the table. We had work to do. The petition cited adultery as grounds for divorce. Texas is one of the states that still recognizes fault-based divorce, and fault can influence asset division. Walter had prepared a detailed filing that documented the DNA evidence, the timeline we had reconstructed of Melissa's relationship prior to Connor's birth, and the financial records covering our entire marriage. It was, Walter told me with characteristic understatement, a thorough document. What Melissa did not know, what she had no way of knowing, was the extent of what I had prepared. She had spent 8 years assuming she was living inside a normal, if unremarkable, marriage. She had no idea that every financial record, every property document, every asset we had built or acquired had been cataloged, verified, and organized into a case that her attorney was going to find extremely difficult to argue against. She hired a lawyer within 48 hours. A woman named Patricia Cho, who had a reasonable reputation in Austin family law. Patricia was competent. She was simply not prepared for what Walter presented. The first settlement meeting happened 6 weeks after service. I sat across the table from Melissa for the first time since filing. She looked like she hadn't slept well in weeks. There were shadows under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth that hadn't been there before. She looked at me when I walked in with an expression I had not expected. Not anger. Not guilt. Desperation. Something about that expression almost moved me. Almost. Then I remembered sitting in my home office at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, reading a number on a screen. 0.00%. And the feeling passed. Patricia opened by suggesting a standard community property split, 50-50 across all marital assets, with Melissa retaining her design studio and a share of the home equity. Walter let her finish. Then he opened his folder. He laid out the adultery documentation first. The DNA results, properly certified. The investigator's report establishing the timeline of Melissa's prior relationship. Then the financial records, all of them 8 years of meticulous documentation showing the complete marital estate in precise detail. Then he explained, calmly and without drama, what we were requesting. The house, which had appreciated significantly over 18 years and was now worth $610,000, with the mortgage nearly paid off, was to be transferred entirely to me, as the property down payment had come primarily from savings accumulated before the marriage, and the ongoing mortgage payments had been made overwhelmingly from my income. The joint investment portfolio, now valued at $380,000, was to be divided 70-30 in my favor, citing the adultery provision under Texas Family Code. Melissa's design studio, which I had helped capitalize with $40,000 of marital funds in its early years, was to remain hers, but she would reimburse the marital estate for that initial investment with interest. Patricia Cho looked at the documents for a long time. Then she asked for a recess. The recess lasted 40 minutes. When they came back, Melissa's eyes were red. Patricia said they would need time to review the documentation and respond formally. Standard language. But the way she said it told me everything. There was no aggression in her voice, no counterpositioning. Just the careful tone of an attorney who has looked at the other side's preparation and understood the terrain. Melissa looked at me once during that meeting, really looked at me, the way she hadn't since I walked in. "Ryan," she said quietly, cutting across whatever Patricia was about to say. "How long have you known?" The room went still. Walter glanced at me. I had told him this moment might come, and I had told him what I intended to say. I looked at my wife, at this woman I had shared a bed with for 18 years, raised a child beside, built a life with, grieved with and laughed with and held through hard nights, and I told her the truth. "Since Connor was 9, I said. The color left her face completely. "You waited," she whispered. "I waited," I said. She looked down at the table. Her hands, I noticed, were shaking slightly. Patricia put a hand on her arm and said something low and professional about focusing on the process. Melissa nodded mechanically. I picked up my coffee cup, took a calm sip, and waited for Walter to continue. The divorce was finalized on a cold Friday morning in November. I remember the weather that day, Gray sky, the kind of flat Texas cold that doesn't bite so much as settle into your bones. I wore a charcoal suit. I had gotten a haircut the day before. Small things, but they mattered to me. I had waited 8 years for this morning and I was going to meet it properly. Walter and I arrived at the courthouse 20 minutes early. We sat in the hallway on a wooden bench and he reviewed the final settlement terms one last time, though we both knew them by heart. Melissa had accepted our terms 3 weeks prior, not everything we'd asked for, but close enough that Walter called it a decisive outcome. The house was mine. The investment split was 65 to 35 in my favor. She repaid the $40,000 studio investment from her share of a smaller joint savings account. She walked away with roughly $180,000 in assets and her business. After 18 years of marriage, 1 child, and a lie she had carried since before Connor could walk, that was what remained. The hearing itself lasted less than 30 minutes. Melissa sat across the aisle with Patricia Cho. She wore a gray blouse and kept her eyes mostly forward, though once, when the judge was reviewing a document, she turned and looked at me. I met her gaze evenly and held it until she looked away. The judge, a composed woman in her 60s named the Honorable Sandra Reeves, read through the agreed terms, asked both parties to confirm their understanding, and signed the decree. Just like that, 18 years became a legal document. Walter shook my hand in the hallway outside. "You did well," he said, which from Walter was essentially a standing ovation. I thanked him for everything, and I meant it completely. Without his patience and precision over those 8 years, the outcome would have been very different. I walked out of that courthouse into the flat gray morning and stood on the steps for a moment, breathing the cold air. I had expected to feel something enormous. Triumph, maybe, or relief, or the particular exhaustion that comes after a long effort finally concludes. What I actually felt was quieter than any of those things. Not emptiness, more like the stillness of a room after a storm has passed. Everything rearranged. Everything changed. But still, I want to tell you about the conversation I had with Connor 2 weeks before the divorce was finalized. I had thought carefully about this for years. How to tell him? How much? I drove to his apartment. He was in his first year at UT Austin, studying engineering, doing well, and we had dinner at a burger place near campus that he liked. We talked about his classes, his roommate situation, a girl he was seeing. Normal things. Good things. After the food came, I set down my burger and told him I needed to say something important. He went still in the way he always did when he sensed seriousness, that particular focused attention he'd had since he was small. I told him his mother and I were divorcing. I told him it had been a long time coming. I told him the decision was mine, that it was final, and that it had nothing to do with him. Then I told him the rest. Calmly, without anger, without editorializing. The DNA test. What it had shown. The decision I had made when he was 9 years old, and why. Connor didn't say anything for a long time. He looked down at the table, then out the window, then back at me. "You stayed," he said finally. "You knew and you stayed." "I stayed for you," I said. "Because you were my son. You still are." His jaw tightened. He was fighting something. I could see it, that specific expression he got when emotion pushed up against his instinct to hold it together. "Dad?" he said. Just that word. I reached across the table and put my hand on his arm, the way I had when he was 7 and scared in that emergency room after breaking his arm falling from a tree. "Nothing about us changes," I said. "Not one thing. I need you to understand that." He nodded. He pressed his lips together hard. Then he reached up and put his hand over mine and we just sat there for a moment in that loud, ordinary burger place. This young man I had chosen every single day for 18 years, and me. That moment, more than the courthouse, more than the signed decree, more than any other single point in those 8 years, that was when I felt it. Not victory. Not revenge. Something cleaner than either of those things. People ask me sometimes, friends who eventually learned what happened, colleagues who heard pieces of it, whether I regret the approach I took. Whether 8 years of silence and patience and careful strategy cost me something I can't get back. I think about that honestly. It cost me the version of my 30s and early 40s that existed in my imagination before that Tuesday night in September, The uncomplicated version, the one where the family I thought I had was the family I actually had. That version was real to me once, and losing it was a genuine grief that I don't minimize. But here is what those 8 years also gave me. They gave me Connor at 18, whole and loved and unscathed by an explosion that could have defined his entire childhood. They gave me the house I had designed and built and cared for, mine now, fully and legally, on a quiet street in North Austin where I still drink my coffee on the back porch every morning before the rest of the world wakes up. They gave me the knowledge that when I was tested, truly tested, in the deepest and most personal way a man can be, I did not collapse. I did not become something ugly. I thought clearly. I acted with purpose. I protected someone who needed protecting. And they gave me something I did not expect and could not have planned for. About 8 months after the divorce, I met a woman named Claire at a work event. She was an architect, actually an architect, which became an immediate conversation. She was warm and direct and laughed easily and looked at the world with a kind of clear-eyed generosity that I found, after everything, genuinely remarkable. We have been together for 2 years now. I am not a man who believes everything happens for a reason. I think that's a story people tell themselves to make pain feel purposeful. But I do believe that who you become on the other side of hard things is shaped entirely by the choices you make inside them. I made my choices. I can live with all of them.